Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen mother-in-law demands to move in with us. After that, bakery had my mom's car towed, so I got the business closed down. And after that, follow the student's education plan to the letter? Don't mind if I do. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to move in. But I haven't anywhere else to go. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen mother-in-law demands to move in with us. To preface, my 40 female, husband 41 male, and I have been together since we were 15 and 16 respectively. We were married at 18 and 19, and we had our first kid when we were 19 and 20. Our second kid was born 4 years later. My in-laws, mother-in-law in particular, has never liked me and has made it very clear that I am no part of the family. She would purposely exclude me from family trips and holidays and celebrations, and if I did show up, I would get the cold shoulder. So I stopped going to events, stopped sending holiday gifts, and basically went no contact with his entire family while he went low contact with them. Now that both of our kids are grown and ready to leave the nest, our son lives with his boyfriend of 4 years and is training to be an electrician. Our daughter is going to college 2 hours away for nursing, and we're helping her find and pay her own apartment near campus. My husband and I decided to downsize the house and get something with 3 bedrooms. Something for just me and my husband when we get ready to retire. We will have one room designated for the kids if and when they come to visit. Both of our kids are in full support of this and have been keeping an eye out for properties we would be interested in. My husband told mother-in-law our plan, and she's now upset. She was under the impression that when our daughter left for college in the fall, that her and father-in-law would be moving in with us, and we would be taking care of them. My husband was confused and asked why they would think that, and she stated that as the oldest, it is his responsibility to take care of the elders in the family. Father-in-law is retired and has been for almost 5 years. Mother-in-law is also retired and gets a pension as well. Neither one of them are hurting financially, and they do not suffer from any medical conditions that would require care. Them living here would be an absolute mental and physical burden on both of us, but mostly me, as I would be the one doing most of the caring. My husband and I discussed it, and both agree that this is insane, and both told mother-in-law and father-in-law that whatever they have planned, they will have to find someplace else to go. Mother-in-law is now calling us, our kids, and other family members to try and get us to change our minds. My kids, who should not be involved in this drama at all, both agree that it's our time now and that we need to sell this house before they show up on the porch. Everyone else is calling us selfish and telling us that we owe it to mother-in-law and father-in-law to take care of them during their old age. So, are we the jerks for telling mother-in-law that they cannot come live with us? Edit. I apologize for not adding this in the post. My husband noticed after I typed that I excluded it. In my husband's culture, it's very common for adult kids to have their parents move in with them when they get old/retire. Update. Thank you for all of your comments and replies. We are both relieved that somehow we are not the jerks or that we are being petulant kids. My husband is going to call his parents tonight and tell them that their treatment, mother-in-law in particular, is the reason why they are not welcome to live here with us, and that is our final answer. Husband will suggest that if they need care, we will gladly find them an assisted living facility, but we, more specifically I, will not be taking care of them, and it's because, as all of you have pointed out, I am not family. So thank you all for helping us, and we really appreciate it. And to answer one last question, yes, my husband is Asian and I am white. My mother-in-law refers to me as White Devil. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let the mother-in-law and father-in-law move in with you or not? Please let us know. Sure, I'd put a doghouse out back for her. Bakery had my mom's car towed, so I got the business closed down. This happened about 8 years ago in 2013, and when I tell people this story, I get mixed reactions, so I figured why not tell Reddit. My mom and I decided to go out to lunch one day. We drove until we found a lot that's business did not appear to be open at the time. My mom pulls into the lot and parks in a spot. We both walk over and investigate the business's window. It was a pastry shop for purposes later in the story. The lights are not on, the door is locked, and there's a sign that says closed right behind the door. We conclude that they are closed and went to eat our lunch. We finished eating about a little over an hour later and come back to find out that our car was missing. But now the bakery was open. My mom and I walk inside of the bakery and ask if they had seen our car. The owner, with a very stern tone and attitude, said, "Yeah, I had it towed because it was taking up spots for potential customers. You should have come inside to ask me first." My mom responds that we did attempt to see if she was open and even buy something to see if we could park there for an hour or so. She calls us liars and said she had been open all day and we never attempted to ask. My mom just basically said we tried and that it was wrong for her to tow us with so many other spots still available. The owner said something back to my mom that really upset her and made her cry. All while this was going on, I was taking mental notes that this bakery/pastry shop was having ventilation/insulation work being done. The insulation worker, who I can only assume was a random contractor and not a specialist, was doing the work right over the prep table for food, all while smoking a cigarette. As I go to console my mom, I turn around and tell the lady her sign still says closed, like when we originally came to the door. She storms up to me, picks up the sign, and slams it around to open. "We are open now." I calmed my mom down and we eventually got the car back from the tow company and got home. Once we got home, I was angry that lady made my mom cry, so I wanted revenge. I called the health department for the city. I say exactly what I wrote above to the guy on the phone, who puts me on hold and tells me to repeat everything I said word for word to his director. I tell the director the story. Nothing about the car being towed, obviously. I was a concerned citizen. She verifies the address and location with me 3 separate times. Yes, the name was X. Yes, it was across the street from this restaurant on this street. She then tells me that she shut down that business the week prior for plumbing issues, insulation, and multiple other infractions. She was told she could not be open and operate a business until the plumbing issue was fixed and approved, told me she would handle it. Later that night on the news, that business was being shut down for good for all the infractions, and I could see my mom look so confused and happy at the same time, like karma worked for her that quickly. Told my mom years later, and she loved it. Speaking of pastries, what are your favorite types of pastries to eat? Please let us know. Do Pop-Tarts count? I love the strawberry ones after being put in the toaster. Follow the student's education plan to the letter? Don't mind if I do. I'm a high school teacher. One of the things the teachers deal with are individual education plans, IEPs. An IEP is for a student with disabilities, learning, developmental, etc. An IEP will outline exactly what accommodations a student is entitled to. These are very necessary and very important, legally binding documents which outline a student's disability as it relates to academic performance and provides accommodations to help the student succeed in school. Common accommodations include may use a calculator on math tests, may have test questions read aloud to him or her, may receive extra time on timed tests, and may take tests in the resource room instead of the academic classroom. It is that last accommodation that is important for this story. If you are unfamiliar, a resource room is the classroom of the special education teacher. While the special education students spend 90% of their day in the same classrooms as other students, they will occasionally return to their special ed teacher's room, the resource room, for things like study hall, homeroom, or to take a test. The special ed teacher assigned to help monitor this student's progress is known as the teacher of record, or TOR for short. Billy was one of my students last year. He was a bright, outgoing, and very active student. However, Billy also did have a few learning disabilities that caused him to struggle in class. Because of these disabilities, may take tests and quizzes in the resources room instead of the academic classroom was a very important part of his IEP. This cut down on distractions and was to help Billy concentrate on his test. After about half a year of Billy doing well in class, he unexpectedly failed a test in my class. The TOR, Mrs. Ratchet, was really upset that Billy didn't do well on that test. She monitored his grades through our online system, so she knew he failed the test less than 10 minutes after I had graded it. In order to get to the bottom of why, she stopped by my classroom after the students had gone home for the day. "Mr. Onyx, why did Billy fail his test?" "I'm not sure. He normally does well on the tests, but this one seemed to stump him. I'm going to talk to him about it tomorrow." "Did you follow his IEP?" "Yes, I did. I offered to let him take the test in the resource room, but he elected to take it in class since it was not a long test. It should be noted that IEP accommodations are generally elective, meaning that the student can choose not to use a specific accommodation at any given point if he or she does not wish to. This does not stop him or her from using that same accommodation later. The only time an accommodation is mandatory is if the parents request that it be so. It is reflected in the IEP when that happens, but it is exceedingly rare. But, Mrs. Ratchet continued, Billy's IEP states that he gets time and a half on tests. I'm aware, I explained. However, this was not a timed test. All students had as much time as they needed. If a student didn't finish during today's class period, they could finish the test tomorrow. All students, including Billy, finished today. He gets time and a half. Yes, he does. But as I said, this was not a timed test. There was unlimited time for all students, including Billy. I'm not going to file a non-compliance report on this, but I want you to know that I expect you, the state expects you, to follow IEPs to the letter. You should not have allowed him to take the test in class. He should have received more time than the other students. You dropped the ball on this one, and I expect it not to happen again. She then stormed out. Now, Billy had chosen to take the test in class, something he very rarely did. I'm not sure why Mrs. Ratchet was so incensed that he hadn't taken the test in her room, since it was Billy's decision, but whatever. As for the time, this was a non-issue. You can't give time and a half for unlimited time, so I ignored that complaint. A few weeks later, Billy had a quiz in my class. This was a very short 10-question quiz. Again, Billy elected to stay in my room. Again, sadly, Billy failed the quiz. That triggered round 2 with Mrs. Ratchet. What is wrong with you, Mr. Onyx? She demanded as she stormed into my room the day the quiz grades were being uploaded to our grading system. Billy should be in my room taking these tests and quizzes. Billy chose not to. I offered him the opportunity to take the quiz in your room, but he chose not to. I cannot force him. I'm getting very tired of your disregard for IEPs. I'm going to be filing a non-compliance report with the administration. I knew I had done nothing wrong, so I wasn't worried. As I suspected, the administration dismissed her complaint as being without merit, and I went on my way. Then, about 2 weeks after the complaint was filed and dismissed, I got an updated IEP for Billy. It seems Mrs. Ratchet was not happy about Billy failing tests and quizzes when he took them in the academic classroom as opposed to the resource room. As a result, she called up Billy's parents and, through conference with them, got his IEP changed. Instead of, Billy may take tests and quizzes in the resource room, it now read, Billy must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record. The last 8 words of that mandate caught my eye, under the supervision of the teacher of record. This meant that, as TOR, Mrs. Ratchet is now legally mandated to be present in her classroom every time Billy takes a test or quiz. Since special ed has instructional assistants, IA, as well as licensed teachers in the room at all times, it's not usually a problem if the TOR is out of the room, since an IA will be in there. Nope, not anymore. I was still upset at Miss Ratchet for her non-compliance complaint against me, even though it got dismissed. I was also upset at her making demands of me, as if I worked for her. I was following the law, following Billy's IEP, and I would be darned if I was going to let anyone tell me I wasn't. Enter the malicious compliance. Every teacher, including special ed teachers, gets a prep period. These periods are periods in which we do not have a class. I use mine for grading and making copies. Some teachers use them to plan for the extracurricular activities they coach or direct. Mrs. Ratchet, I knew, used hers to hang out down the hall in her classroom of her BFF, a biology teacher with the same prep period as her. If a student had a test or quiz to take, it wouldn't be an issue normally. An IA would be in the room, so the TOR didn't have to be. Well, except for Billy now. You see, Mrs. Ratchet's prep period was the same period in which I had Billy in class. About a week after the new IEP was handed down, I had another quiz in class. Unfortunately for Billy, as I explained to him, his parents and Mrs. Ratchet had decided that he had to take quizzes and tests in Mrs. Ratchet's room. He wasn't happy, but his IEP was not vague on this point. Knowing Mrs. Ratchet wouldn't be in the classroom, I took Billy down to Mrs. Ratchet's room myself, having my own IA, who was only in my room because of Billy, watch the class. When I got there, I asked the IA where Mrs. Ratchet was. She's in Miss Bio teacher's room, she kindly explained. All right, I said. Billy, have a seat and I'll go get Mrs. Ratchet. Mrs. Ratchet, I said a few moments later as I got to Miss Bio teacher's room. Billy needs to take a quiz. We need you down in your room to supervise. Miss IA is there, she said with a dismissive wave. She can handle it. Oh no, she can't, I explained with a smile. You see, I am, as you reminded me, expected to follow Billy's IEP to the letter. His IEP says that he must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record. As his teacher of record, I'm afraid that you are required to be there. It would be non-compliance for me to leave the supervision of his quiz up to Miss IA. She looked upset, but knew that she had backed herself into a corner. Reluctantly, and obviously fuming, she left Miss Bio teacher's room and returned to her room. For the remainder of the year, every test and quiz I assigned to Billy required that Mrs. Ratchet give up her prep period in order to supervise. There weren't a lot of them, but I really enjoyed twisting the knife every so often, just to remind her that it was her actions which forced this. Later, from what I've been told, she tried to get Billy's parents to change the IEP to state may instead of must. They liked the must. They kept it in. Edit. I've addressed a couple of things a few times in the comments, but I want to point out that I have no evidence that there was cheating going on in the resource room, nor do I have any reason to think that there was a bad relationship between Billy, Mrs. Ratchet, and her IAs. Quite honestly, the reason Billy chose to stay in my room a couple times was because those two assessments were short tests and quizzes, and like all kids, Billy just didn't want to spend the time walking down to Mrs. Ratchet's room. Also, like all kids, Billy was just not prepared for those tests, hence him failing. For a couple people who questioned why I let him stay in my room for the quiz after he had failed the first test, please keep in mind that his IEP at that point stated may take tests in the resource room. The key word is may. The decision was his to make. I would encourage him, but not require him to take tests in the resource room. Well, until the IEP was changed to must. Have you ever had a teacher you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know.
I had a teacher named Mr. Stanley when I was in middle school. The guy's breath smelled like dead cats.
No, you won't get a $400 gift card for a $300 washing machine. So I used to work at a big electronics store that also sold appliances. I had just put in my 4-week notice. I chose to stay longer since the holidays were coming and the store had a lot of people leave to better jobs or move stores for promotions. I was tasked with covering appliances since I was one of the high sellers with fewer returns. As I'm going around the department and cleaning the fingerprints off of stainless, I hear a loud, ahem. This woman was glaring at me and used her chubby finger to motion me over. Now, while I always prided myself in making angry people happy with their experience, and even if they were mad, I'd try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they might have something else they are angry about, and it's not me personally. So I got up from my scrubbing and walked over to the large sign that was posted. Now, we would occasionally give free gift cards on certain large purchases, and we had a promotion on a particular brand of washer and dryer. The sign in question read along the lines of, "Get up to a $400 gift card on select washer and dryer pairs," basically meaning to get the $400 gift card, you had to buy the $2,500 washer and $2,500 dryer as a pair. The woman points to the washer and dryer set that's the brand's low-end option that were $300 each. This was a few years ago, so not verbatim.
I'll take this washing machine. I don't need a dryer, and I want the gift card in cash.
I politely explained the ad and this particular set didn't come with a gift card and that she would need to upgrade to get it. I also showed her the model that came with a gift card. She balked at the price, which I don't blame her. She then whips out her phone and starts recording me and asks me to explain again how I'm ripping people off and that she's going to have me fired, etc. At this point, my GM walks over and asks what the problem is. I should note that my GM and I had a very good relationship, and he would sometimes ask me to handle problem customers, usually around the holidays when the other managers were preparing for war, since I was good at getting people in a much better mood. I had also worked with him long enough for him to know when I was uncomfortable and needed some help. The woman points at the sign, camera still rolling, and asks him how he sleeps at night knowing that he's ripping people off. He then proceeded to tell her that she can either take the deal that corporate was offering or purchase an open box item, display item, or damaged that was heavily discounted. Lady walks off in a huff and met who I assume was her significant other, loudly complaining to anyone who would listen that she's never coming here again, and proceeded to purchase 4 new phones from the cell phone department. I have more stories about crazy people if you would like to hear them. My area is pretty diverse, so they come in all brands of wackadoo. I've told this story to family and friends for a chuckle, and I did not expect anything from it, so thanks. Lady acts like orders can be retroactively unmade. To set the scene, I work in a Chinese restaurant in a casino. Our clientele are generally terrible to deal with, but this particular lady wins the award for the biggest pain in the butt of the day. And she didn't even get her food by the time she earned this trophy. This lady comes in, sits down, and I notice that she's kind of watching us servers. So I go over and ask if she wanted to order something. She immediately starts ordering. Great, we're a fast-paced, casual dining venue. Get in and get out is better for us. But then it takes a sudden turn for the worse. Me. Okay, so I have chicken wings, vegetable noodle soup. Karen.
Actually, no more house fried rice. Let's get the Thai combo instead.
Me. Okay, we'll do that. I repeat her order and 10 minutes go by. Karen is literally yelling at me.
Actually, can I cancel random entree and replace it with new entree? Oh, and instead of chicken wings, can I get the random appetizer?
Me. So, you don't want those anymore? I look in the window and literally see the items in the window.
No, just cancel them. I want these instead.
Me. Okay. I go to the back, inform the chefs. The chefs groan. I figure we're done. We're done, right? Oh no. Karen is again yelling at me.
Can you cancel the other order of chicken wings now? I actually just want another new entree instead.
Me. Yes. I go back and inform the cooks, wrap around the corner, and moan. Another few minutes go by, and another server grabs my attention. Server. Karen says she wants to cancel her bottled beverage. I look at her table. Karen has literally opened it and poured it into a cup, then decided she didn't like it. Me. We can't cancel that. She's opened it. We can't resell it. No. Server. But she doesn't. Me. She's opened it. No. At this point, I'm ready to lose it. Is it really that hard for you to sit down and decide what you want? The cherry on top of this crab pie, this lady decides to wait another 30 minutes so that her ungodly kids can now come over. 30 minutes after she has finished eating, and then asks me to reheat her food. Working in a casino sucks because it makes it very difficult for anyone to say no to this stupid stuff. She demands I drive out to fix her broken terminal twice. A recent story reminded me of this. Way back in the day, 1992-ish, I worked tech support for a company that handled installation of Unix computers, terminals, software for accounting systems for small organizations. We could dial into their setup and remote control the software, apply updates, etc. One day I get a call from this woman who insisted that the terminal she was using was broken. I called into their system and could see that the terminal wasn't connected at the moment. So I stepped through her, making sure that it was plugged in. She insisted absolutely that it was plugged in, turned on, and the light was on and everything. After running through all the possibilities that I could think of, she was still adamant that I come out and replace the terminal since it was clearly broken. I was hesitant to make this trip since it was 225 kilometers away, would require about 5 or 6 hours of my day to make the round trip, traffic and a lot of snow. But my boss told me to make sure these customers were kept happy. I grabbed a new terminal out of the storage closet, some extra cabling in case it was just a bad serial cable, and my tools, and headed out on the trip. At least I got paid enough per kilometer that it was well worth it. It took me about 3 hours to get there, and this woman is just steamed. I walk in the door, set my bag down, look at the wall, where the power cord is clearly not plugged into the wall itself. I picked up the cable, plugged it in, and lo and behold, the terminal turned on and the login prompt comes up. I looked at her, and she tells me that she tried that. I was literally in the office for less than 60 seconds, and since the call was not actually our problem, they got billed for this 6-hour-long service call in full, and I got 450 kilometers of mileage at like 25 cents per kilometer, was way more than the gas/maintenance on my old 86 Honda Accord cost me. Cue the same woman 8 days later. She's on the phone to me, screaming that my fix didn't work at all, and that the terminal was broken again, and that I needed to replace the faulty terminal right now. I asked her if the terminal was plugged into the wall, because remember last week when I came out and it wasn't plugged in? Are you absolutely sure? She was absolutely sure. Another 3-hour drive down there, walk in the door, and look at what I see. The power cable is clearly laying on the floor again. I asked her if she saw that it was unplugged. She told me that she isn't technical and that I should have made sure that it was done right last time. I plugged it back in, and guess what? It worked. She was still mad because it shouldn't be happening this much. Not sure how I was supposed to make that happen. I grabbed my bag, but before I left, I noticed that this small company had gotten a new receptionist. I guess before they didn't have one. So I stopped and chatted for a bit, asking her if she knew anything about what's going on with the plug to the terminal. She didn't have a clue, but she would keep an eye out for me. Made it another 10 days before I get another call from the lady again. I tell her I was on a service call, but I'll call her back in 5 minutes. A quick call to the receptionist where she said that the lady had her little nephews in the room, so she ran and checked that the terminal was unplugged for me. It was. She plugged it back in, and when I called back to the lady, she said it was working again, but was still wary that it was going to go out. I told her that if it fails again, have her receptionist call me so she won't have to wait, and I can perform a reset of the connection remotely, a new feature, and get her up and running in 2 minutes. I never had to make another in-person service call to that location again. I sent the receptionist a big box of Bernard Callebaut chocolates for Xmas. Am I the jerk for telling my friends and family I won't be sponsoring anyone anymore? I don't think I'm the jerk, but a few people have said that I am because charities are really struggling due to lockdown, so I'd really value outside opinions. I'm on a small fixed income due to health issues, and while I'm not living on the breadline or absolutely broke, I don't have holidays, buy expensive clothes, eat at restaurants a lot, etc. I can cover my bills and expenses, but don't have a great deal of fun money. Maybe 20 to 30 pounds a month to spend on clothes, toiletries, maybe a book or a craft item. I also have some expenses that are directly related to my health that really mount up. In the past, whenever friends or family are doing sponsored events for charity, I always try to donate something, even if it's just 10 pounds. This year, a few of my friends have signed up to do various challenges. I know that the charity sector is really struggling at the moment, so I'm proud of them for stepping up. I posted on the Book of Faces that this year I'm unable to sponsor anyone as I desperately need an electric wheelchair, and I need to save every penny for that. I said I was proud of everyone that has decided to do an event and will support them by sharing the event, but that I was really sorry but wouldn't be able to support them financially. 2 people messaged me asking if they were exempt from this because we're so close, and I said no, it applies to everyone. I explained, although they already know this, that not being able to leave the house was massively affecting my mental health, and I needed to prioritize this. They said it was a bad time to stop supporting charities when they are already struggling. One of them also called me a selfish jerk. They said that electric wheelchairs are for people who can't work at all. Here's where I might be the jerk. I know that many charities are struggling or are reaching the point where they are unable to continue to provide much needed services, and I've been helped in the past by charities and organizations. One of my friends who said I was the jerk pointed out that the charity she was raising money for, the Samaritans, was a charity that I had used previously. On a really good day, I can get around my small local shop, but that's about it, and that only happens once every 2 or 3 weeks. Most of the time, I'm able to get around my ground floor apartment by holding on to furniture and using walking sticks, but obviously outside, I can't lean on furniture, and if I fall, it's not a soft landing. I'm 34 and feel like I have no life. Also, I need an electric wheelchair, around 2,000 pounds, rather than a mobility scooter, around 500 to 1,000 pounds. As where I live, you can't use mobility scooters in public transport, and you can use electric wheelchairs. I don't drive, so this would literally change my life, but I understand that charities are struggling. So, would I be the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I didn't think I was the jerk at first, but I obviously have a lot of time to think about things, and they really got in my head and made me doubt myself. I also think that not being able to get out much has limited my abilities to make friends, and I'm probably hanging on to people because of that. However, if they're making me feel so bad and aren't there for me, then I guess they aren't real friends anyway. Thank you so much. I will stick to not sponsoring and reassess those who have an issue with this. Thank you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friends? Please let us know.
Those so-called friends aren't friends at all. I'd cut them out of my life ASAP. Take care of yourself, OP. You are very much worth it.
Cold hard cash? Sure thing. Prefacing this with the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is petty as heck. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that. Absolutely adored it. She gave him a turtle ocarina once, and I love it. That should explain her gifting for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood-burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift whimsical, Grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, "I don't know, just give me cold hard cash." Bad move. Very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives in a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift and was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is, until Grandma brought out a 2x2x2 squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurements might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very angry when it happened. This story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either. Oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing when brought into the room, and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice in mixed money, which were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in the house for the fear of water damage, so it was set in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't mess with Grandma and her whimsical presence. Don't stop now. Come listen to this one next. I guarantee you're gonna love it.
And huge thank you to Matt the Vase Boy, our newest official channel member. Thank you so much for supporting our channel. It really means the world to us. Join as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make any kind of special video that you'd like us to, head over to our Fiverr. Link pinned in the comments below.